Thank you, Mark. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you're experiencing this moment, this moment that, as we always say, is incredibly individuated, where different people in different places of the world having different experiences, but it's also shared. Um, and that has power, particularly in a atomized world where we feel very apart from each other. There's power to share even a few minutes of togetherness. I'm going to start with a nigun. Ay, ya, da, 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 da. Ay, ya, da, da. Ay, ya, ba, 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 ay. Ay, 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 da, da, na. Ay, ya, da, 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 da. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ya, ba, 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 ba. Ay, 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 ya, da, da. Hi, ya, na, 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 ho, ay, ya, na, na, ay, ya, da, 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 ay, 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 ya, na, ay, ya, da, 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 ho, ay, ya, da, 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 ay, ya, ba, 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 ba. Ay, 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 ay. People in my community know my personal mindfulness practice and those mindfulness moments that I organize and curate for my community. When it's where in this period of the Jewish calendar, the Omer, they're almost always focused on the Kabbalistic overlay of this biblical period called the Omer. And in brief, just as a review, biblically, the Omer was purely agricultural. It referred to the earliest ripening produce in the land of Israel, the barley, and our ancestors having gratitude that once again the fields were yielding and they brought an omer, a sheaf of barley, to the temple for 7 weeks of 7 days. And it was purely a way of expressing thanks to the Holy One for a world that was producing what it ought to produce. The rabbis came along and they did some math and they said, 7 weeks of 7 days starting on Pesach, about where were our ancestors on their journey out of Egypt at that time? Right around the foot of a mountain, receiving Torah at Mount Sinai. And so the rabbis added to the Omer the notion of a counting up, a 7 weeks of 7 days counting up towards receiving Torah at Sinai. There was a dip in the notion of the Omer later on in the rabbinic period when it was associated with a time of a plague that was taking the lives of many of the students of Rabbi Akiva, that it was interrupted on the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, and so the Omer took on a period of mourning. And then about 13 or 1400 years later, the Kabbalists said, I see seven, and seven is an iconic number in our tradition, and 7 days of 7 weeks can also be thought of as representing or inviting us into a deeper relationship with the Sfirot, the seven emanations of the Holy One, seven fantasies about a divine presence in the world. And whenever we talk about that which we imagine or think about in terms of God's reality, it's also an invitation for each of us to try to aspire towards that. And so each of the 49 days of the Omer plots us on a particular week associated with one sirah and a day of that week, which is a subset of it. Okay. As Rabbi Mark said, we're in the 30th day of the Omer, which means we are in the fifth week. And the fifth sfirah, the fifth week, is the week of Hod. Hod in standard Hebrew means splendor or glory. But in Kabbalistic Hebrew, it means humility. It means modesty. It's connected to the root, at least in the Kabbalistic imagination, of Hoda'ah, Todah, thank you. Even if the word Hod is not exactly etymologically related to that, to the Kabbalists it was, Hod is humility. But we are not just in the week of Hod, We are in the second day of the fifth week, and the second sphira is Gvura. Gvura in standard Hebrew means might, strength. Ozei Yisrael b'Gvura, we say in the morning that God gives us might. But in the Kabbalistic idea, Gvura is restraint, holding back. As in the rabbinic dictum, Ezehu Gibor, who is a real hero, not one who brandishes a weapon, Hakovesh et Yitzro, the one who restrains his or her urge. And so, if you map Gvura onto Hod, if you map restraint onto humility, you have the following thing to think about and challenge yourself with. How much am I called upon to hold back, to yield, to restrain that which I want, that which I know of my own abilities, in order to really live and exemplify Hod, modesty, humility? A distinct way of saying it. I did not coin this phrase, but I love it. A full cup cannot be filled. If you want to go through your personal and spiritual life looking for other sources to fill you up, you have to create the space. A full cup cannot be filled. Gvura of Hod, the 30th day of the Omer, is training ourselves in the pullback, in the tzimtzum, in the lessening, so we can be at a place of humility and then receive so much more. With that in mind, if you haven't already, I invite you to close your eyes and start claiming this moment in time and the physical space that you are occupying as a mishkan, as a tabernacle, as holiness. Place your feet flat on the ground in front of you so that you have full contact with the earth. And place your hands on your legs, either palms up, which is a stance of openness to the world and to this moment, or palms down, which is a gentle embrace of self. And let your spine be true and long and dignified, creating pure verticality from your tailbone downward, all the way through the crown of your head pointing upward. And let everything else fall, sag, and yield as with Gvura. Don't hold up anything that wishes to be down right now. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, connecting nishima, breath, with nishama, soul, spirit, as we aim for a few extended moments of poised rest. Moments in which you know you are very alert, focused, more awake than you have been all day, but also at rest, serene, tranquil, well in the deepest sense. Bahod, the week of Hod, the week of humility, the day of Gvura, the day where we exhibit our strength by holding it back, day that we exhibit our great size by becoming a bit smaller. Gvura Shebahod. We empty our cup just enough so that it can be filled. A full cup cannot be filled. But with Gvura, we make space. And the Shefa, the beauty that flows in, is worth every pullback, every self-limiting. Gvura Shebahod. The restraint that is demanded by humility. We'll end with saying a closing meditation. Oops, that was not it. Sorry. I'm going to say this closing meditation prayer together 3 times. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. May we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. May we and all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May we all experience true happiness that has no taint of suffering. And may we live in great equanimity, free from burdening attachment to loved ones and contempt for others, but rather with compassion for all. I say to you all, shalom and namaste.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Adam Kligfield, for leading us so beautifully today. And friends, let's seal this practice of Gevurah Shebahod, of restraint and service, of humility, with an opportunity for those who are in mourning or observing a yard site to recite the Kaddish. If it's your custom to join in the Kaddish, you're welcome to do so. And to use your Gevurah if you are not reciting Kaddish, just to stay present and support those who are. You can put in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish any of the names of folks that you are honoring today. And thanks to Rachel for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. And if you are joining me, please rise in body or in spirit. You can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah.
Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yomad Yivrak Yirteh, Chayefon, Yomechon, Vayedekah Yisrael, Zman Karev, Yisrael, Amen. Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Ame Ame Abba, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Be Ama, be Say, be Tajar, be Tala, be Tala, be Fu, Ela Minko, be Fatu, Shua, Tatushka, Nepomata, Daniwata, Hebrew, Amen. Yehesh Lama Rama, Shemaya, Amen.
Shlama Rabba
O
Shemaya.
Israel,
L'chaim
Hebrew,
Lavinu
Amen. Osa
Israel
Shalom, Yaseh
Amen.
Shalom Aleinu,
Oseh
Yahweh
Shalom
Yisrael,
Lamav
Yeshbei
Shalom
Tevel,
Aleinu
V'Yamru, Amen.
Israel Yalko Yoshvei Tevel Amen.
Amen.
Say shalom, Elena Bialko Yisrael, Bialko Yisrael Tevel, Ve'imru, Amen.
Amen. Amen. May all those in mourning, all those of you who are observing Yortzeit, may you be comforted. And want to thank Rabbi Adam Kligfield for leading us so beautifully today. I want to thank Rachel Huget for holding our tech space. If you're leaving us now, I hope you'll join us tomorrow. Actually, Rabbi Josh Fagelson will be here to host tomorrow, and our teacher will be Rabbi Margie Jacobs. Just a reminder that on Thursday, our sit is co-sponsored by Dorot in New York City. It will be focusing on themes related to wise or mindful aging, and Larry Schwartz will be leading it. Friday is Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, and we'll sit into Shabbat with Rebecca Schisler of the IJS faculty. And if you'd like to join us for conversation, as always, you're more than welcome to do so and to share your reflections or anything about your experience today in the chat. If you have a question you'd like to ask Adam, please put it in the chat and I will keep an eye out for that and try to work your question into our conversation. Harris, you anticipated my question too. So Adam, thank you so much, as always. Beautiful practice today. So here we are in the week of Hod, and you lifted up one of the understandings of Hod as humility. At some point you said modesty. We've also been focusing on it as a quality of gratitude. So I want to, and I think that they're very closely related, but I wanted to, sometimes we think about the sphirot, I think, the way I think about it as the sphirot as kind of like the Hebrew shoresh, like a root, which can have a range of connotations. One of the beauties of Hebrew is that you can have a three-letter root that, you can't really pin it down. It has a range of meanings that kind of go beyond translation, but point us towards a state of being or an aspect of being, right? So we may use the English words gratitude, humility. What is it really pointing to there? Okay, I don't know. So do you want to take a shot at that? What's the connection between humility and gratitude?
First of all, it's a wondrous, frustrating, and endless game to be involved in translations across languages, generations, cultures, millennia. I mean, it's impossible to get to precision and so wonderful to toil within it, right? So on the one hand, we know that in modern English, there's such a thing as a synonym, but somehow when we go to our tradition, we want to, because we're trained so well to be the creators of a God who makes to fine distinctions, we want to make fine distinctions. We want to slice the difference between humility and modesty and hod and anava. And sometimes when we work on those distinctions, we're actually uncovering something that was intended, and sometimes we're creating something anew, and that's fine as well. My personal understanding of anava, which does not mean that it's accurate, is that it's the part of the part of humility that conjures ourselves as properly small in relation to the grandeur of God and the universe, right? That anava has a certain miniatureness to it, not self-loathing, but miniatureness. Whereas hod, to me, is the shade of humility that expresses and that acknowledges, that is grateful for other influences on me, which doesn't require me to think of myself as small, but maybe open, right? And it relates to the different ways of understanding even what todah means and even what modeh ani. When we say modeh ani, it doesn't really do it justice to say, I'm thankful, God. There's some larger, more noble opening up to the possibilities of the day because you have brought me back to life. And so I say Modeh Ani, that doesn't require me to think of myself as small, but as a receptacle, as an open receptacle. And that to me is a slightly different take on humility than the smallness, which I think is also required. I think it's also proper to think of ourselves as small compared to that which is big,
Right.
but also open as opposed to being closed.
Yeah. So I want to stay with openness. I think, just like, we can throw a lot of different English terms in here to describe the state that we're trying to cultivate. One of the things I'm interested in is we do this day by day, and we don't every day, work with the permutations of these different qualities, but for most of the Omer, we've done that. And every time I think, oh, this is a perfect combination for Jewish mindfulness meditation. And I think this is, today I thought, oh, this is really good. Using restraint in service of, and I'm just going to pick up the word you used, openness of you just were talking about like openness to other contributions or other things that make up what we are, or openness to what the day will bring, or not knowing, right? Or being open to mystery in some sense. And our colleague, Rabbi Jonathan Slater, has a little catchphrase. I wonder what will happen next. I wonder what will happen next. And I think that's a good, that works for me in terms of like a little bumper sticker for the practice as a scribe. I'm going to hold, like, I notice the inclination to say, oh, this is going to happen. So I think this will happen, or this should happen, or he should say this or that. And it's like you use our gevura to constrain that and say, I wonder what's happening. What is happening now? To turn the conviction into a question. So we have a lot of qualities thrown in there. There's curiosity, there's openness. And you used an image that I thought was also really helpful of the cup. I was thinking about a Kiddush cup. And you were talking about, interesting, using our strength as to do tzimtzum, contract, in order to make space in the cup, which is really interesting because you would think gratitude is about a full cup, but you kind of turned it on its head. So like gratitude is really about making space for the blessings to fill that space in a way. So I just really appreciated that.
Thank you. The phrase "I wonder what will come next" that was what he coined. I mean, when you said that, part of my brain wanted the phrase to stop at the second word because I wonder, Dayenu, just with I
Right.
wonder.
Right.
And I was thinking, and I love these games. I was thinking about the Hebrew word for wonder, ani toheh, is related to tohu. It's related to the unformed void, pre-creation. So why that's the case is really interesting to think through. I don't have an answer to it, but it's wonderful etymologically what one says in modern Hebrew to express that you don't know what's coming next and you're open to it is bringing you back to the pre-creation moment. Before anything that was, there was tohu. There was also vohu, right? And it's almost as if, can I bring myself into a miniature moment of accepting the fact that whatever is about to happen hasn't happened yet. Whatever is about to be created in my life with my words has not been created yet. The possibilities, it's frightening, and the possibilities are endless. It's frightening because there's no certainty that what's going to come out of it is a world, Baruch Shamar Vaya Olam. But it's also extraordinary that there's about to be something there wasn't yet. Ani toheh.
So there's a series of questions coming up in the chat relating to restraint. For example, Rona's question: self-restraint can be difficult when one is very aware of those being restrained by others. For example, there's how to uncouple these ideas. I want to build up, tack onto that. Esther's question: your thought on connection and balance of self-restraint, giving us the open space to fill, and self-restraint that can be harmful. So I think one question is about, thinking about self-restraint and then thinking about restraint applied to others, but also how we can restrain ourselves in ways that can be harmful to ourselves, right? To hold ourselves back or make ourselves too small, use contraction excessively.
the balance is critical and elusive. And I think one of the wonders of the 7x7 Kabbalistic grid of the Omer is that if you become present in all of them, that natural balance, equilibrium will have been fed to you because they balance one another, right? All of this has to be done with love, with hod, with chesed, with a sense of acceptance of self as well. Because if you're constantly harping on that which needs to be fixed within you, you're not doing this. You're not doing the work in a way that is going to be nourishing. I think of one of my favorite moments in tefillah that is only recited and even known about by those who come to shul on time. Wink, wink to anyone who may come to shul late. There's a moment early in the liturgy, at least in the siddur that I use, where we go into a place of deep, almost self-abnegation. Ma anachnu, ma chayenu, ma tzidkenu. What are we? What are our lives? What are our righteousness? We're basically nothing compared to you, right? You are infinite. We are infinitesimally small, and we're supposed to bring ourselves real low. But at that moment, the liturgy shifts and says a very significant aval, but aval anachnu amcha bnei britecha. But God, we're also the people of your covenant, which means that we're grand, we're regal, we're extraordinary, right? And I love that before we actually get into tefillah, our prayer says, you've got to get into your place of nothing and you have to get into your place of everything, right? The Hasidic image of the note in each pocket, bishvilini ra'olam, the world was created for me. Anochi afar ve'efra, I'm just dust and ashes. So yes, that balance is critical and not easy to accomplish. And sometimes we may go minutes, days, weeks, or even months in one, like doubling down on one without the balance of the other. And when we become alert to it, or when someone helps us become alert to it, it's our opportunity to tilt the fulcrum in the opposite direction. Because none of this good material is helpful in the extreme. I don't think anything is helpful in the extreme, but none of this good
Right.
material about the human condition grafted onto the divine or vice versa is helpful in the extreme.
Yeah. And it also, thanks for that. And it bears repeating that we're like moving day by day, week by week through this 7-week period. And we focus on one particular quality or one particular quality in relation to one other particular quality, but in the end, we'll have a totality, right? And this
Yes.
balance and integration, a more holistic way of holding all of it. So that restraint is one piece of it, but it's not by far not the only one. Want to shift gears because there's also like a wonderful interplay of questions here with Lori and Susanna. Lori read that she's distracted by the phrase "a full cannot be filled," which is a phrase I don't think I'd ever heard. Isn't humility and gratitude to consider and be grateful for my cup that's so full of blessings of God of all the time, even when things are tough? How is it humble to consider my life in lack and wanting more? Which I just thought was interesting. And it also made me think about a custom that I've taken on or my family's taken on at Passover Seder since yesterday. Yesterday was Pesach Sheni, and I was still eating matzah here, is allowing someone else to fill my Kiddush cup. Sometimes people might have this too, of letting your neighbor at the Seder table fill your cup for you, but you have an empty cup. Don't fill it yourself. Anyway, so there was that question about how is that gratitude or humility? But then Susanna offered this beautiful gloss. The water cycle of ecology came to mind. Instead, maybe we can think of ourselves as beyond ourselves as a container and more being part of a cycle that flows through, which I love also. Dry season, rainy season, wet season, empty season, full season.
Yeah. I love those questions, and going back to the previous comment that if you think of your cup as too empty,
Mhm.
you'll be so frenzied to get it full that that nothing will possibly complete you, right? So when I think of the notion of full cup cannot be filled, it's not to suggest that therefore you should think of yourself as an empty cup that constantly needs something in it, right? A a, a completely empty stomach groans. A slightly empty stomach is happy for the next nourishment that comes in. I think the notion of a full cup cannot be filled is to not delude yourself to thinking that even as you are in a moment of wellness, that there's nothing that other people cannot, or other experiences cannot contribute to your to your well-being, or you're going to be it could turn very much into such self-satisfaction that it leads to narcissism. I
Yeah.
think of the wonderful teaching from Parshat Chukat, where the Kohen Gadol, who was elemental in helping uh, bring someone back from Tum'ah to Tahara using the ritual of the Para Aduma, of the red heifer, um, in officiating in that ritual, the Kohen, who had to begin as Tahor, life flowing, ends up Tameh, life ebbing, and then is now reliant on someone else to fill in that cavity, fill in that opening. So I do think it's cyclical, and I think it's good to be self-reliant and to look at your reality and say, Dayenu, I have enough. And at the same time to say, I have other people in my life who give me things that I can't give myself. And there is space. There is space within me to receive. And once again, if those two things can be kept in balance, then our very selves can be in balance.
Well, thanks for keeping us in Pesach Sheni. And we get to practice a little Dayenu today.
Second day Yontif of Pesach Sheni.
Pesach Sheni, right. Hey, you're a conservative rabbi.
That's right.
You have to work second day Pesach Sheni also. But by bringing Dayenu in, that was really what I was going with that of of this practice this week of enoughness. And I'm also coming from, just mentioning before we end here, I'm coming from an interesting conversation between a group of Israeli mishlachat, a delegation of Israelis leaders visiting Congregation B'nai Jeshurun this week, meeting with a couple of local Jewish leaders. And we're just talking about difficult conversations and being able to hear different realities without being reactive to it. And I'm thinking, Adam, that this practice that you're offering today of using restraint in order to just to receive, right? In order to get out of ourselves, really, allow ourselves to hear the other perspective. And I see somebody, I think Lori, Nancy, somebody was facilitating a difficult conversation also last night. Anyway, just wanted just one more word of appreciation for this practice, Adam, which I think is very helpful as a framing for the meditation practice, but also for how we take the meditation into our day. We'll all have many opportunities today to practice restraint in service of humility/gratitude. So grateful to you, as always, for beautiful Torah and contribution to this community of practice. And thanks to Rachel for holding our space today, each of you for being here. Stay tuned tomorrow. Rabbi Margie Jacobs will lead our practice. And I'll see you back here on Thursday with Larry Schwartz for our special sit with Doro. Until then, everyone, be well, be safe. Thanks again, Adam. Many blessings, everyone.